just ahead on CTV News.
The trial continues of a woman accused of killing her own mother. I'm Katara Jones. I have more details coming up on CTV News.
Early voting continues in Maryland and turns out some big crowds. I'm Byron Scott. Will have that story coming up.
The Commanders find a way to win as time expires yesterday. I'm Bryce Parker. We'll have more from the game coming up on CTV News.
Those stories and more on CTV News, starting now.
Good evening. This is CTV News for October 28th. I'm Mariah Jalad. Thanks for joining us. The trial of Candace Craig, the county woman charged with the murder of her own mother, continues today. CTV's Katara Jones was inside the courtroom with more on this story. We want to warn our viewers at home that the details revealed in court today might be disturbing to some of our viewers.
That's right. The jury trial of Candace Craig continued today. Craig has been charged with killing her mother, 71-year-old Margaret Craig, back in May of 2023 in their home on Hill Road in Landover. Prosecutors say Craig dismembered her mother's body with a chainsaw and then tried to burn the body parts. Now, today in court, the crime scene tech Frank Carson took the stand. Carson discussed evidence he discovered in a trash can and recycle bin at the home. While on the stand, he says inside the trash can was a paper bag that had suspected biological materials inside. Some of the suspected biological materials include a human heart that was found loose inside the trash can, as well as fatty tissue and a lung. He also testified that a storage bin had both liquid and biological materials inside the bin. Corporal Elizabeth Groves, who is now retired with the Prince George's Police Department, says she noticed flies and maggots near a brown bag inside the home. It was discovered that it had body parts inside. Now, while in court today, Candace Craig had a quiet demeanor. Reports indicate that Margaret Craig had asked Candace about fraudulent credit card purchases prior to her murder. Candace Craig has been charged with murder, evidence tampering, and improperly disposing of a body. Her trial is expected to continue throughout the week. Katara Jones, CTV News.
Thank you, Katara. And Candace Craig's daughter, Salia Hardy, also faces charges and is accused of helping her mother cover up the murder of her grandmother. And with just 8 more days until Election Day, presidential hopefuls Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are using the week to make their last attempts to win over voters. Yesterday, former President Trump held a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City, serving as his closing message. But the night was overshadowed by racist remarks from other speakers, including one comedian who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Vice President Harris will be in the district tomorrow for what's expected to be her final message before the general election. Her campaign is anticipating an audience of about 20,000 at the Ellipse, the park south of the White House, where in 2021, then President Trump delivered remarks that led to the January 6th insurrection. And even as we count down the days to the general election, it could still be days after November 5th that we know the results of the neck-and-neck presidential race. If you remember, in 2020, it took another 4 days after Election Day to count all the votes and name President Joe Biden the winner. This year, election officials across the country have been preparing to get through all the ballots. And in some states like Maryland, mail-in ballots can be processed as soon as they arrive in the early voting period. Experts are also predicting election result denial, and any recounts could also delay an official election result. And with Election Day nearing, voters in Maryland have been eager to get to the polls for early voting. And as Byron Scott reports, Day 5 of early voting brought some big names and long lines to the polls.
We're very proud that we just had a chance to vote yes to make Kamala Harris the next president of the United States.
In Annapolis this morning at the Pip Moyer Recreation Center, Governor Wes Moore and First Lady Dawn Moore cast their votes as early voting is in full swing across Maryland. For Governor Moore, it was another chance to advocate for Angela Alsobrooks in her run for a U.S. Senate seat.
Angela is going to bring something so unique and special to that seat. And she's going to bring something that's going to make us not just proud as Marylanders, but Joe, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I think she's going to make us proud as Americans.
Statewide, more than 150,000 voters went to the polls on the first day alone. In Prince George's County, as of yesterday, more than 63,000 residents went to the polls.
As you enter the gym, please have your cell phones off.
At the Bowie Gymnasium this morning,
Anybody have standing issues? Okay.
long lines of eager voters.
Very surprised. I thought most people would have come out over the weekend.
And while there's always much at stake in an election, voters say this one is big, and they are not hesitant to say how they cast their ballot.
They had a big rally for Trump in New York, and one of the speakers got up there and was talking that Puerto Rico is just a floating island of garbage. And they bleeped out a lot of other things he said about the Latinos. And like I said, my daughter-in-law is from Puerto Rico, and she's not garbage.
Anytime you're dealing with former President Trump, it's going to be crazy because he's crazy.
In addition to the presidential race, as we alluded to earlier, also up for grabs is a race that can determine control of the U.S. Senate. Angela Alsobrooks is up against Larry Hogan, with polls indicating Alsobrooks is ahead by double digits. You were saying that this ad seemed to go on forever and ever and ever. Mm-hmm. Does that irritate you, or?
It makes you almost tone deaf to it. That you just, you hear, oh, this is another ad, and you just kind of go on and do something else.
I just think it's real important. We're given the opportunity to vote early, so you take advantage of it. Tomorrow's never promised, so you know what will happen between now and November 4th. And I just think it shows a good sign to the community, the nation, of folks coming out in droves to vote earlier and exercise their constitutional right.
Election day, of course, is November 5th, but early voting in Maryland goes through Thursday, Halloween, till 8 p.m. In Bowie, Byron Scott, CTV News.
And we're hearing a lot of talk of Trump and Harris, but whether it's Peppa Pig for president, Santa for Senate, or Madonna for mayor, Marylanders can write in any candidate of their choosing for all elected positions on this year's ballot. Every election, thousands of Marylanders opt out of the major parties' candidates and go for a more unique choice. But just because you technically cast your vote for your write-in candidate doesn't mean the state will keep track of it. Maryland law requires candidates must file with the Board of Elections for officials to keep track of their write-in votes. This year, there are 21 certified write-in candidates for president and 4 for Senate in the state. And a man was shot and killed over the weekend following a crash in the county. Around 12:50 a.m. Saturday, police responded to the intersection of Suitland Road and Randolph Road in Morningside for a report of a 2-car crash. Before police arrived to the scene, the incident turned confrontational, and the caller told police that shots were fired. The victim, 38-year-old Joseph Holtz of Suitland, was transported by Prince George's County Fire and EMS to a local medical facility where he was pronounced dead. The occupant who fired the handgun was detained and taken into custody. And no charges will be filed in the February 16th fatal in-custody incident that occurred in Largo. Attorney General Anthony Brown announced Friday that after an investigation of all available evidence, none of the officers committed a crime under Maryland law. According to police, officers responded to a 911 call of an unknown man knocking on doors in the area. An adult man identified as Joseph Holmes was encountered by police in the roadway before officers requested an ambulance. Holmes later went into medical distress, became unresponsive, and was pronounced dead on the scene shortly after. Well, if you missed last night's Commanders game, there's a good chance you heard about it today, including the game-winning play that became an instant classic. Bryce Parker is at Northwest Stadium with more.
That's right, Mariah. Thousands of screaming fans were here yesterday praying for a miracle at the end of the game against the Chicago Bears, and their prayer was answered. Jaden Daniels, with a Hail Mary from the opposite side of the field, lands in the waiting hands of Noah Brown as time expires, spoiling the homecoming of fellow rookie quarterback and DMV native Caleb Williams. Daniels, who only practiced one day this week due to a rib injury he sustained last week against the Carolina Panthers, was a game-time decision as to if he would even play yesterday. But not only did he suit up and make the trot out the tunnel, he delivered a moment that Commanders fans will not soon forget. Down 12-15 with 2 seconds left in the game, Daniels heaves the ball 65 yards in the air, tipped off the hands of tight end Zach Ertz, and just as it seemed that things were over, Noah Brown caught the ball in the end zone to send the Bears back to Chicago with their third loss of the season.
There's a lot of Cowboy fans is pissed off right now, and I'm happy. I'm loving the reaction.
Yes, sir.
They mad because we at the top right now,
yes,
baby.
Lord.
We stand up there, baby.
Stand up there.
If you mad, stay mad. That's where you need to be at.
I knew the Bears had it in the bag. As an Eagles fan, I was like happy because my Eagles won yesterday, and I was counting on the loss for the Commanders. And when the ball went up in the air, I was like, there's no way they're going to catch it. And when he caught it, I was... My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it.
Stay mad. That's where you need to be at, because we know y'all really Commanders fans, but y'all hurt.
And I was like, oh my God, these guys pulled out a win. And I'm thinking it's going to take the Eagles to put them in their place at this point, because nobody was shutting them down at this point. So
I live by the stadium, so I heard all the screams, but I was screaming in my house as if I was at the stadium.
With yesterday's win, the Commanders improved their record to an impressive 6-2 on the season and hold on to their top spot in the NFC East. Up next, the Commanders will travel to New York to face their division rival, the New York Giants, who they already beat this year in Landover, hoping to bring that Daniels magic with them on the road. Reporting from Landover, I'm Bryce Parker, CTV News.
Thank you, Bryce. This truly has been a historic season for the franchise. The last time the Commanders started 6-2 was 2008, and the last time they were 4-0, 2005. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Mariah Jalad. Still to come, October is Fire Prevention Month. After the break, we talk to Prince George's fire chief on staying safe all season.
Well, I'm looking good. Thank you. Just became a real ID. What's the plan? Impromptu road trip? Actually, the plan is to fly to New York for today's product launch, and then visit the family in California and cap it off with a girls' weekend in New Orleans. You really can just do all that. Sure, I'm a real ID, so I'm good to board any domestic flight. Speaking of which, gotta fly. Nice. Enjoy. I'll be here.
Be your real ID self by May 7th, 2025. Find out how at tsa.gov/realid.
Well, a Maryland state trooper is facing DUI charges after allegedly striking another vehicle on Interstate 83 near Ruxton Road. Officials report that Lieutenant Dwayne Hill, a nearly 20-year veteran of the force, was off duty and driving his personal vehicle around 1 a.m. October 26th when the crash occurred. No injuries were reported. Hill has been suspended with pay pending an internal investigation. Maryland State Police say the investigation into the crash is ongoing. And Maryland's Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller and Maryland Secretary of State Susan Lee welcomed a NATO delegation of officials, academics, and analysts to the State House on Friday. This high-profile visit, marking NATO's 75th anniversary, highlights the alliance's role in global security. The gathering included cybersecurity discussions and insights into subnational diplomacy. Miller emphasized Maryland's commitment to international partnerships, while Secretary Lee underscored the importance of collaboration at all levels for collective security. And a lawsuit against Prince George's County and Fire Chief Tiffany Green in relation to firefighter staffing has been denied by a county circuit court judge. The defendants included the City of Greenbelt, the Town of Berwyn Heights, the City of College Park, and Greenbelt Volunteer Fire and Rescue, and a group of other plaintiffs who filed the lawsuit in late June. The staffing shortages stem from a summer staffing plan put in place by Chief Green, meant to alleviate the burden on firefighters across the county. Earlier this month, a revised plan was presented by Chief Green to the Town of Berwyn Heights that went into effect on October 11th. And October is Fire Prevention Month, and did you know that a fire department responds to a fire every 23 seconds across the country? We caught up with Prince George's Fire Chief Tiffany Green for some tips on staying safe and warm as we enter the winter months and what we can do to avoid being that fire department call.
So one, they can follow all of our social media feeds that has all of those tips that will keep them safe, but just simple things as not plugging in heaters into outlets, making sure that when they're cooking that they're not leaving their food unattended, and most importantly, having a working smoke alarm and closing their door before they go to bed at night.
You can keep up with the fire department on social media at PGFD News. And pandas Bao Li and Qing Bao are getting used to their new home at the Smithsonian National Zoo and having a little bit of fun. The zoo released this clip showing the giant pandas in their current standard quarantine period. During this time, they get to explore their new homes and play with enrichment tools like the colorful balls we see here. The pandas arrived on October 15th after a long journey from China. The quarantine makes sure the bears don't spread diseases or parasites to other animals in the zoo. We still have to wait until next year to see the pandas in person. General public can see the bears starting on January 24th. And still to come on CTV News, we're joined by a local woman making a tangible difference in the lives of those facing loss. Back in a moment.
The doctor said I only had a 29% chance to find you. But I knew you were out there. Every night, even when my heart was sad, I wished for you to sign up. I got so sick that I couldn't go to school, but I still made people laugh. But when we matched, it was the best day ever. Dear donor, your blood stem cells saved me from leukemia. Thank you forever and ever and ever. Sincerely, Owen.
Experience the true joy of saving a life at nmdp.org.
Well, if you've ever lost a loved one or someone close to you, grief is no stranger to you. What many people forget is that grief comes in waves. Sometimes you may be able to ride it through, other times it may feel like you are drowning. After recognizing the lack of support during her own difficult time, one local woman embarked on a mission to foster a compassionate environment where others can navigate their grief healthily. Joining us in studio today is Celebrate Still Incorporated founder Kimberly Gross. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Ms. Gross. So tell me about your own experience with grief and how that inspired you to create your foundation.
Absolutely. So my mom passed away 20 years ago. So initially, that was the most devastating thing that you can experience, especially when you have a mom that was as amazing as mine. So I spent the first few years, just grieving in unhealthy ways. That was my first real experience with death, being so close to home. I'm a church baby, so I've been to funerals, but that was the first time it ever hit personal. So just fast forwarding through life, you grief, like you said, comes in waves. So you can't avoid Mother's Day, you can't avoid Christmas, you can't avoid traditions. So I just wanted to create space for people who've experienced that loss, and not just the loss of a mom, but any type of loss, to be able to, one, know that grieving is okay, but to encourage healthy grieving. So that's where it was born from.
All right. Yeah. And what kind of services does Celebrate Still provide?
So we do a couple things. We have two major events every year. One is a Mother's Day brunch. This year we had over 100 people attend, which was pretty cool. We also do a Happy for the Holidays concert, which kind of helps get in front of that holiday slump that people experience during the holidays. But then also we have in-person grief support groups and then one-on-one grief coaching.
So I really like how you mentioned the holiday feeling, it's coming up, and how can people that are going through grief still deal with that? What are some helpful things to keep in mind?
One, I encourage everybody to communicate. So it's okay to grieve. We cannot avoid it. We cannot avoid our memories. And grief is just basically those memories knocking on the door and then no one being there to open it. So we can't avoid that. So I say communicate, talk to your network, say this is what I'm experiencing. And then establish boundaries. If, you cooking the traditional mac and cheese or you cooking the traditional turkey, it's too triggering for you, still go, but maybe you don't don't bring that dish. You know, maybe someone else picks up that tradition, or it's okay to start new traditions. Finding a way to honor our loved ones while still being very much present is so therapeutic.
And one of the things that you offer is this journal right here. So talk to me about how journaling is a good outlet for dealing with grief, and what are some other helpful things that people can do? Journaling
probably saved my life. So it's not by happenstance that I've created journals. So this journal in particular, Believe, Begin, Become, is filled with affirmations. I'm a firm believer in talking to yourself, and letting people know that talking to yourself doesn't mean that you're crazy, as we've come to say over time, but just what we say to ourselves is important. Words have power. So I'm a big believer in affirmations. This one is Live and Shattered. It's a 21-day faith-fueled journey through grief, and it's more of dedicated towards the person who may not be ready for in-person therapy, but still wants some help. So it's kind of like me holding your hand from a distance, guiding you through that process. And then the third one, Monday Mornings, play on the word mornings there. That one is a little more personal. So I have some personal letters in there to the reader, just talking about what I experienced during that time of my mom's transition and even in the years after. And then there's some guided prompts in there to write as well.
Okay, great. I love those. Talk to me a little bit more about what else makes Celebrate Still unique from other grief counseling.
So what makes us unique? Grief is starting to become pretty popular. It's starting to become a popular topic. But what I like to offer our family, I don't like to say clients, but what I like to offer our family, I'm blending faith and education and experience. So some people go to school just to learn how to be a counselor because they like talking to people. Some people end up in ministry because, like me, my dad is a bishop, so I say I was born on a church pew. So I have that faith perspective, and I have the education, but then I also have the experience to be able to walk our customers, our clients, our family through some of the most challenging times in their life. And grief extends far beyond just losing a loved one. You know, we grieve the loss of a relationship or the sudden loss of a job like we experienced through the pandemic. So it's just a mix of it all. So I love that.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So many more questions for you, but we're all out of time.
You got to have me back.
Of course, definitely.
Thank you.
For more information on Celebrate Still Inc. or Kimberly Gross, you can visit celebratestill.org. And don't move, Simon Buggs has our Monday sports page after this break.
Having low income can mean making tough choices. Choosing between paying for food or medication or a place to live is a reality for many people. Do you know someone who could use some extra help? Find out about the Supplemental Security Income Program, SSI. You could receive monthly SSI payments if your income and financial resources are low and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. SSI is money you can use to help pay for basic needs, like putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, paying the rent. It can mean new shoes for growing feet, or help with medical needs. Call 1-800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/SSI to schedule an appointment or start to apply today. That's ssa.gov/SSI. Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
What's up, everybody? Hope you had a great weekend. I know us Commanders fans did. It's time for your Monday sports page. Now, before we get to the Commanders game, first I have some awesome highlights for you from the world of high school football. It was Friday Night Lights this past weekend as the Wise High School football team traveled to Bowie High School to take on the Bulldogs. Now in the first quarter, although their offense failed to score any points, Bowie's defense made some nice plays like free safety Elijah Butler, showing off his clutch gene as he picked the ball off to save a potential Pumas touchdown. But because of the safety from the Bulldogs when they got the ball back on offense, Wise was able to extend the lead to 23-0 by the end of the quarter. Wild's offense didn't miss a beat in the second quarter as they made some big plays like this nice run from star running back DeCarlos Young. And the Pumas capped off their drive with a touchdown pass from QB Eric Wedge to receiver Elijah Pedro to go up 30-0 on Bowie. Bowie's defense kept giving up big plays in the quarter like this pass completion for a big gain by wideout D. Ray Edwards as he made multiple Bulldog defenders miss on his way to putting his team into red zone territory. And the Pumas were able to punch one in again as Young ran the ball up the middle for an easy Pumas touchdown. And that stingy Pumas defense made some big plays in the quarter as well, like this pick six from cornerback Tyrell Deal. Wise went into halftime up big 50-0, and then went back to Springdale with the dub, dominating Bowie 57-0. Wise will take the field next versus Northwestern on Friday, while Bowie will try to bounce back from their loss when they take on Eleanor Roosevelt on Saturday. Meanwhile, my Washington Commanders took the field yesterday against DMV native Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, and the game had an absolutely exciting finish. With just 2 seconds left in the ball game, Washington was behind 15-12, and it looked like the team might drop their second game in the last 3. That wasn't until Jaden Daniels scrambled out of the pocket and launched a 65-yard Hail Mary to the end zone. And wide receiver Noah Brown was at the right place at the right time as the ball bounced right into his hands for a Commanders touchdown. And the team won the game 18-15. Northwest Stadium was going absolutely crazy as fans and Commanders players couldn't believe what they just saw.
I was juiced up for sure. I'm excited because, that's kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like, not too many people get to experience stuff like that. That was my first time. So, obviously, I was juiced up, the whole stadium, team, sideline, everybody.
Last-minute Hail Mary. Try and get down there as fast as you can, box out, keep good position, and, hope Jaden can get a ball down there. He did a phenomenal job keeping the play alive and get the best ball possible, and we came out with a dub.
It's happened to me once, but, we still lost. But, with the Hail Mary one, I'm just saying, it's over until it's over, man, when it's out. So, when he threw that ball, the ball was in the air for, hella long. And, when Noah came down with, man, it just, God was definitely was with us on this one.
It was just it was like a movie, to be completely honest with you. To be a part of that, it's front row seats to something amazing. Whoa, that was just crazy. This will always stick in my head forever. What a moment.
And with that win, Washington is still on top of the NFC East at 6-2. Man, that feels good to say. They'll match up against Daniel Jones and the New York Giants on Saturday. And wrapping up sports, the Terps football team fell to Minnesota this past Saturday, 48-23. This is the Terps' third loss in the last 5 games. They're now 4-4 and will take on Oregon next on November 9th. And that is your Monday sports page.
Thanks so much, Simon.
No problem.
I'm really happy for you guys. Not happy as a Cowboys fan, though.
Hopefully you guys can bounce back next week.
I hope so. Now let's get a look at our 3-day weather forecast. Tonight will be mostly clear. Tuesday we'll get some clouds and it's going to be 69 degrees during the day. Wednesday will be sunny with a high of 78 and low of 59. Halloween Thursday we get back to the 80s, so good conditions for our trick-or-treaters, but we have a chance of rain after 2 a.m. And for our community calendar, do you like scary movies? Well, tomorrow evening the Laurel Branch Library is hosting a haunted horror trivia night. Come test your knowledge of horror films and books in this exciting trivia game and win some prizes. This event takes place from 6 to 7 p.m. For more information, contact 240-455-5451. And that wraps up CTV News for now. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Go Commanders.
To a child battling a critical illness, a wish can feel like a dream. But with your help, it isn't out of reach. Wishes are an important part of medical treatment. A chance for kids to see themselves stronger, braver, to see that the impossible is possible. Wishes can give kids the strength to fight, to get better, to grow up. Where there's a wish, there's a way.